introduce. Bill gave me a whole bio. It was 16 pages long. I had to cut it down a little, but he left off the most important thing that he's ever done. He was our president for the first year when we first started out in 2017. And then he came to become, this mic isn't on, is it? Then, okay.
Please yell it.
Then he became our senior advisor, so he's been telling me what to do for the last 7 years. But I would like to just introduce a couple people. Dave Beaver over here beside the video machine, if you wave, he's our new photographer and video person. So hopefully we'll be getting some nicer pictures for the website. Karen McClellan, Karen, if you just wave, she's one of our board members. And Jackie Leonard, if you'd give us a wave. Because
stand up.
a curtsy, you should give us a curtsy. Because every time I turn around at the end of the meeting and I'm cleaning up, there's Jackie, and she's also very helpful. Jack Still isn't here tonight. He usually helps with the video, but he's such a great friend of mine and such a great historian locally. So I just wanted to mention him. So one of the things I don't know if you had a chance to see the PowerPoint before, but one of the things I just want to ask for is people to do presentations next year. We have a couple, but we need a couple more. And I can help you with research. We can help with PowerPoints. If anybody has anything that they want to talk about that deals with Lower Swatara Township, we want you to come and we want you to share it. Even if it's a letter from your grandfather sent during World War II. It's just we want to get the local history out. And this is one of the ways we can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Bill. Again, cut it down to 1 page. Bill Leonard is a lifelong resident of Middletown and Lower Swatara Township. He's the former Lower Swatara Township Commissioner, past Fire Chief, and current President of the Lower Swatara Volunteer Fire Company Department. He is the current Chairman of the Board of Directors for the Susquehanna Area Regional Airport Authority, the owner of Harrisburg International Airport. He's one of the founding members of the Lower Swatara Township Historical Preservation Society. He did mention it, I must have missed it. Not short on things to do, Bill's interests included restoring antique automobiles and flying. His Civil War interest began in elementary school, visiting the Mecca of the Civil War, Gettysburg, with his parents. He began Civil War reenacting in 1988 as a member of the 116th Pennsylvania Infantry, aka the Irish Brigade, eventually transferring to Battery M, 2nd U.S. Artillery, which accompanied General George Pickett in the Battle of Gettysburg. Bill became a member of the U.S. Artillery Reserve Headquarters staff and serves as the Chief of Staff. The Artillery Reserve is the largest artillery reenacting organization in the United States. Bill's great-great-grandfather was a member of Company C, 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry. That's sort of a coincidence, because that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Researching his background was a driving reason for considering the 9th Calvary experience, which will be reviewed tonight. Bill and his family live in Old Reliance Farms in Lower Swatara Township. So, for the next 16 hours, we're going to listen to Bill. Bill, welcome, help me welcome Bill. What?
1 page. 1 page. Thanks for being here. A couple things way up front. Nancy connived me into doing this. If she connives you into doing it, you get a pie. You can name any kind of pie you want. That's a commitment that I'm making for you on behalf of her. Those are authentic pies. They're from 1862. They've been in a nice box for the last 162 years. They're very good. Just from a disclaimer standpoint, I have 4 guns up here. They are from the 1860s. They were used in the Civil War. They are inoperative. There's no bullets in the firehouse. There's no black powder in this firehouse. I have a permit for them. If anybody wants me to remove them, I'll be glad to do that. Anybody have any? I'm going to use them in here just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to pick them up. I'm not going to point them this way, but they're useful tools. If you're okay with it, I'm going to keep them here. If you're uncomfortable with them, I can keep going. Sounds like we're good? Okay. The important thing is I have the cat clicker from home. cats have no idea what they're doing. So anyhow, how many of you remember back in high school or elementary school, your history teacher or your English teacher saying, we're going to write a 500-word essay this year? Anybody remember that? No? Okay. Pretend one of you. Chris Dehart remembers that. So you think, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to write the paper on? Well, maybe I'm going to write it on the Civil War. 500 words is in one typewritten piece of paper. That's it. You double space it, you get 2 pieces of paper. So if you think you're going to write an essay on the Civil War, here's a book. There's 500 pages in here. So if you're going to write an essay on the Civil War, I don't know what you're going to do. The biggest battle in the Civil War was Gettysburg. Everybody knows Gettysburg was very close. There's 3 pages in Gettysburg in this book. So if you're going to write an essay in 500 words or less, maybe you need to think a little smaller. Here's a book on Gettysburg alone. It's pretty good. It's one of the best ones around. I'll leave it up here. 350 pages. So you're still not going to get to that 500-word plateau. So maybe you're down a little further. And there's a reason I'm doing this. First day, Gettysburg. First day. 460 pages. So think about that essay you're going to write in high school. You might want to get down a little further. Deepwater Alexander and the artillery at the Peach Orchard. 125 pages. And finally, Stone's Brigade and the fight for the McPherson Farm. Real good book. The lower you get, the better they are. The more detailed, the more personal. 165 pages. So why am I starting off with all this? Get my clicker. You all can hear me without the mic? Dave, did you say no? Her. Okay, all right. So thanks for coming. Here's what we're going to try and do. In order to get to the Civil War, we got to take a look at Lower Swatara Township, Middletown, and Royalton. So I'm going to start with some of that. Then, take a look how the 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry got formed. A significant portion of the 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry came from Middletown, Royalton, and Lower Swatara Township. So that's right here. And Nancy has a rule. If you present, you have to say Lower Swatara Township, so it's today. We're going to follow the 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry from 1861 to 1865. They mustered in October of 1861 in Harrisburg. The war basically started in April. So they were in the first year, they mustered out in 1865, the last year of the war. So they were in for the duration. And remember that 600-page book and then the 500-page book? I'm going to hit like 0.1% of what's up here. I can't go any further. And I'm still going to be talking fast to get this done in 45 minutes. So bear with me. Questions are welcome. There's some I just don't know, but I know there's some people in here. Don's over there, my neighbor. He knows firearms. I think he dresses Confederate, which I don't like. But there's people in the room here I think I can use. So that's what we're going to try and do. So let's take a look locally. Nancy, I think we have maps like this around. I don't know if we're here tonight. Lower Swatara Township is outlined. Farms, 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 farms. Messick's and whoever else, landbaiters were here. And take a look down the bottom right of the map. Middletown was probably the anchor to this area. And if you can really look at that map, there's about 10 streets in there instead of 75 streets in Middletown today. A lot of reliance on the waterways. The Susquehanna River and the Swatara Creek surround us. But what were the 2 canals that came together in Middletown? This is going to be interactive tonight, so I'm warning you right now. I'm going to ask questions. Put my throat going out. 2 canals. Union Canal, Pennsylvania Canal. So reliance on waterways is good. The Can't really see it, but the beginnings of the Pennsylvania Railroad on the southern part, you know where the railroad tracks are now. That's starting to come into play. So you have the railroad, you have the waterways, and the beginning of the road system, which were the dirt paths between here and the Denny farms out in 441. So you can see a little bit of that. Farms, 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 like I said, principal crops were wheat, oats, corn, and hay. I don't see steel up there. I don't see aluminum up there. I don't see anything like that up there. Largely countryside, which is, fortunately, it's kind of like where it is today, a little bit. Get back into Middletown in the 1700s. Everybody know where the old fort is down on Swatara Street? The band hall. No? Wow. Anyhow, that's the mill. Swatara Ferry House, down along the Swatara Creek at Ann and Union Street. There's that log building down there and the wooden band hall. That's where that was. Fry's Mill, which is in the picture, this is looking like from Hoffer Park towards Union Street. And if you look in the back, with my cat clicker right there is the old railroad station. There was a Cooper shop. Anybody know what Coopers did? They made barrels. When I was putting this together at the Cooper shop up, and they said, this one said what the Coopers do, so I had to look it up. They made barrels. Watson and Johnson Boat Yard, why were they here? The two canals were here, so it made a lot of sense. And they were down around Mill Street, right where the mill house is. And Stubbs Steel Furnace, that's the first steel furnace in the southern part of the county that pops up.
Clicker off.
Clicker off. A little bit further into the 1800s. Blacksmith, nail maker, plasterer, pottery, tannery for leather comes into play. Burr millstones. Who knows what they are? Yep. Grinding stones. Silversmith and lumber business. Do you see anything unusual about those first 8 things up there? If you're a guy and your name wasn't John or Jacob, you might as well hit the pipe because nobody else would know the first name except John and Jacob. At least that's my observation. 1814, we have 2 glass furnaces, a foundry, 2 flour mills, and sawmills. A little bit of ironworking in there, but not a whole lot. Still in the wood, water, and farm stuff. Major iron foundries. Bethlehem Iron Works, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, produced rails, which was important at the time. Armor plating was war kind of stuff, but it was used on steam engines. Phoenixville Iron Company later on produced cannon. Fort Pitt Iron Works, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, made castings for those big siege mortars. Those were the guns you might have seen on TV lobbing shells up over the walls of forts. Allegheny Arsenal produced 40,000 bullets every day. 40,000. So, what do we supply? What did Middletown, what did Royalton, and what did Lower Swatara Township supply? People. What else? Horses. We had people and horses. I'm not familiar with anything about James Young, but according to what we pulled together, purchasing agent for the railroad. Railroad's critical of the expanding union requirement, federal requirement for the war. So they're the first go-to people you run into. He took, and remember this down here a couple minutes, 60 men and horses for the cavalry in September 1861 to the government and said, here we are. And the government said, get out of here. I don't need you. I already have enough people to take care of this. You can go back to where you are. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then the owner of the Star Barn comes into play, who makes a lot of money selling horses and mules to the United States Army for the duration of the war. And that was done right here, right behind us. According to the census, depending on how you look at this was good for guys or bad for guys. There were, in Middletown, almost 2,400 women and just 1,100 guys. Sounds like a good deal to me. Now, maybe you didn't like that, maybe you do. I don't know. Lower Swatara Township, 1127 total, 558 guys. So a little bit more balanced out there. Out here in God's country, a little bit more balanced in Middletown. 400 to 500 men enlisted in the United States military already by the time the war started. Or were included in the volunteer count that came up after that. So there's kind of the foundation up until the mid-1800s. Think of some other things that are going on between 1840 and 1860. A lot of interest in the North, the industrial North, where the trains got made, where the iron got made, all the things that you saw, and the cotton-producing South. So the North wants slave states. The Confederacy, the South, not the Confederacy yet, wants owned slaves. I think everybody knows that. Compromise of 1850 is California way out by the Pacific. How are they going to come in the United States? They're going to come in as a free state or a slave state. So the compromise was California comes in as a free state, but all the states around them are likely to throw their hat into the slave state scenario. But it was a compromise, strictly targeting California. Fugitive Slave Act in the United States. If you knew of an escaped runaway slave, a fugitive slave, it was your responsibility, North or South, to turn them in. I think last year, Nancy, we had a presentation in here about the Underground Railroad, which was alive and well in Middletown. So think about that. There were runaway slaves here that, according to law, you were obligated to turn in. Those people, as well as anybody harbored. Uncle Tom's Cabin, heard of the book? Probably a lot of you. Fiction, nonfiction, you choose about the harsh treatment of slaves. And from what you would kind of pick up just from an introduction standpoint, mostly not true, but it was a tempting thing in the 1850s to get thrown out there when people were considering what they're going to do. Kansas-Nebraska Act. Landowners in the Kansas and Nebraska territories, they're not states yet, could decide which way they were going to go, slavery or non-slavery. So I could have a farm here on the north side of 283, and I could be a slave owner. Frank Gambino could have a farm on the south side of 283, and he could be a free farm. It was that close, maybe that tenuous, but those are the options there. And then the Dred Scott Supreme Court decision said you don't have the right, regardless of where you live, to be a citizen of the United States if you're a slave. Continuing on a little more, John Brown. Sound familiar to some of you? Abolitionist, maybe viewed as a troublemaker, takes a bunch of these guys, raids Harper's Ferry. Harper's Ferry is very close here, right below the Pennsylvania border, Maryland, Virginia, down along the Potomac River. They raid that army camp, if you will. They get caught, they get tried, and he sees the rope. They were murdered, not murdered, they were hung for treason. 1859, so for the past 19 years, there's things going on. Young guy from Illinois gets elected president. He's not a Republican, he's not a Democrat, he's a Whig. The Whig Party started around the time of the Revolutionary War, and they were the advocates who pushed the United States and putting the colonies together and declaring freedom from England. He was a Whig initially. Young guy. If you see a picture of Abraham Lincoln when he first gets elected, he looks exactly like Bill Brodnail, young, vibrant, and everything. When he sadly is assassinated, you can see the wear and tear. It was a hard period of time. Confederacy starts up in 1861, so now we're about, 40, 50, we're 20 years into this discontent. Confederate forces fired the first shots at Fort Sumter in April 1861. Carolinas, so remember that a little bit later. That's where all the unrest started. That's where the southern colonies got together and formed the Confederacy. So if you recall what I said earlier, Lincoln says I need 75,000 men for 90 days. Right, let's all go sign up. We'll be there in training for a month, we'll fight for a month, we'll come home for a month, and we'll make $15 a month. Sounds like a good deal. 90 days, 75,000 people. There were 150,000 people, soldiers that fought in Gettysburg 2 years later. So it's kind of wishful thinking, maybe quell the rebellion with that many people. So let's come back to Pennsylvania a little bit. Once the war gets kicked in, the United States government says every state in the North has to bring together a militia and to put their own volunteers in. So Pennsylvania being one of those, the Keystone State, was obligated to do that. Governor Curtin appoints a guy named Edward Williams, probably the best known military guy in the area. Early adopter and a former leader of the Pennsylvania militia, fought in the Mexican War, and he was the first man that Curtin assigns to be a member of the Pennsylvania Volunteer Services. So Williams goes out and says, all right, I'm going to recruit cavalry. And he starts with the 92nd Regiment. Became known as the Lockheed Cavalry because of the Lockheed area up above Harrisburg. And eventually as the 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry. So that's where it starts. Home of 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry, like I said earlier, it's Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Regardless of where you came from, if you're in the 9th, you go to Harrisburg to sign up. And when you get out, when you come home on furlough, you come back through Harrisburg. Recruitment was from many countries, counties around the area, often included Lancaster, Philly. Organized in Harrisburg. Rendezvous point, you'll see in some books Camp Cameron. Not a lot of reference to Camp Cameron, but right behind Camp Cameron is Camp Curtin. So they're probably one and the same. And as I mentioned a couple different times, Harrisburg served as the regiment's central point of organization, gathering throughout the war. Company C was recruited from Middletown, Royalton, and Lower Swatara Township. There's some people from Hummelstown, but primarily this area. 156 enlisted men, times the number of companies that we were supposed to raise. I forget, 27, something like that. So we're up into 3,000 numbers for the cavalry. Bad eye test chart. I get it. The only reason I have it up here is a reference point for any of you who want to start looking at maybe family members, neighbors, or anybody you can think of that was in the volunteer service or the military in Pennsylvania in the Civil War. Nancy has some documentation over there, but this is a series of 4 books. I gotta find the cat clicker here in a second. Right here. If you take a look at it, it says by company, 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry, Company C, name of the individual on the left, what their rank was, how many years service they had, and how that service terminated. The fortunate ones will say 3 years mustered out in Harrisburg. There are some up here, if I let you read it a little bit closer. Died in a hospital in Perryville, Kentucky. Captured and declared missing. Died at home after coming home for medical services. So it gives a history. It gives a history. That's what I have to live with. It gives a history of everybody that's in Pennsylvania Volunteer Service. I think I said U.S. Service before, Pennsylvania Volunteers. I'll put that name up later. It's a series of 4 books. Probably the best ones you can find, if you can find them. And if you want to mortgage your house, you can buy them. But they're authentic. The copies are few and far between, but they're excellent. You can get them, get access to them at some of the bigger historical houses and museums down in Washington. You can get access to those books. I highlighted Samuel Conrad, great-great-great-grandfather. Now you tell me the answer to this. He mustered in as a private in 1861. 3 years later, he mustered out as a private. Why? He was incredibly smart. Okay. Or he was in trouble all the time and kept in prison and kept getting demoted. I like the first one. Okay. The looks and the brains came from that guy. And some of you people will just keep quiet. Anyhow, good book. You'll find some good references in there. You might have relatives in there and neighbors and so forth. And it is accessible in Washington, D.C. So clothing and equipment. Take a look at the picture. This is cavalry. Anybody know how you can tell cavalry just by looking at it? Real easy. Even if they were barefoot. How could you tell this was a cavalry guy? Yellow. Yellow trim. How can you tell if someone's more associated with the artillery? Red. Okay? And how could you tell if someone was associated with the infantry? Blue. All right, so I have a volunteer here in a minute who's going to put on a blue coat. But some of the things you picked out. Boots. Important when you're riding horses. You need to have boots. Good shoes. Good pair of pants. What you don't see there is in the center of the legs, it's double stitch. It's not just one layer. There's 2 layers of wool. I forgot to mention this is incredibly hot in here tonight. This is wool, and I'll switch places with you from a clothing standpoint later. It's hot in July in Gettysburg, too. If you take a look at the coat, it's a shell jacket. It's short because of the horse requirements. There's a belt there, just like the one I'm wearing. There is a packet right here for caps to fire weapons. The ammunition box is in the back, same place for mine is. And you see a saber, which is standard issue for all the cavalry. Cavalry saber is straight. An artillery saber, for some reason, I have no idea why, is curved. No clue. If somebody has an idea, let me know. Maybe it is. You're sitting on top of a horse, maybe that was it. I know that curved thing gets in the way when you're walking.
Straight blade will go in and come back out.
Straight blade comes in, there we go.
Blade is for slashing.
Could be. I'm sure there was a number of good reasons, they just happen to be different. The ironic thing is the horse artillery went with the cavalry, so you're following the same person. Just doing different things. So let's talk about what was issued. A coat. I'm wearing an officer's coat. That was an enlisted man's coat. $9. A pair of pants, shirt, pair of underwear, 1 pair of socks, and a pair of boots. How many of you wear 1 pair of socks more than one day?
I'm thinking 1 pair of underwear and then you go commando.
You flip it around, right? We're at the side A in the morning on the first, and then on the side B. So Frank, when I asked Frank to put it up here. I want Frank to put on the infantry coat that I have here. It is a longer infantry coat. It's more an early war coat. You'll see the blue trim. Okay? And this is going to be the most spectacular thing. This is my favorite coat. This morning was, what, 28 degrees here? This thing doesn't work. This thing's this way. I want to see if Claudia's going to disappear. This is the winter coat. She's going to tell you it's very warm. A little protection on the back. Up here. Around it. This is Claudia. But if you can imagine being out on a horse in December, November, or even today, you got to have something like this on. In about 2 minutes, they're going to tell you how hot they are. Good. Good. Right. So blue, that was issued to everybody. You don't see this on that list. What you got up there was the first couple things everybody's doing. So I'll let the volunteers put the coats back and this again. That's again. But here's the other thing, $13 a month. So for the first 2 months, you're in the hole. You got to stay in, like Lincoln says, for 90 days and get your pay so you can start. Well, you got fed, hardtack and coffee. So you didn't starve, you didn't go broke, but you didn't make any money. So $13 a month takes you, what, 2 months just to break even. So a lot of people went in because they wanted to fight for the United States, and they wanted to see things. So you're in the Army, you're going to go to Virginia, you're going to go to Ohio, you're going to see everything you didn't see in central Pennsylvania. A little more. Sabres were issued November 4th, 1861. So this comes down 2 months you have to get enlisted. How many people here were in the military? So what did you do? I'm not asking, that's not a question. Some guy with a bugle woke you up perhaps in the morning. You went to eat, and you drilled and you drilled and you drilled, something like that. Got yelled at a couple times. Then you ate some more, and you did it over and over and over and over again. So you finally get a weapon that you can use about 2 months after that training. And I don't know if I was smart or not, because you might have been so mad and tired of drilling, you take this saber and whip your ankle. So I'm going to pull this out. Authentic size, this is a reproduction, but it's pretty similar to what, well, it's exactly similar to what we use. So from a cavalry standpoint, I carry this with me. There's a little loop on the top. Goes right there, and I'm good to go. So that's item number one. What's the second piece of very important stuff that the cavalry needs? The most important thing, horses. On or about December 5th through the 8th, the horses show up. About 2,000 horses show up in Harrisburg. Somebody made a lot of money because 4 of them weren't any good. So they gave them back. Okay, 411 horses were condemned, and they were replaced. Pretty interesting. When do we get firearms? Smooth bore, I'm going to ask Frank to come back up here. Smooth bore musket. Don, maybe I should ask you also. Come on. Smooth bore musket, very heavy, fires 1 round. And the procedure is, Don's going to check me on this. When I get the command to load and fire, I have to bring a bullet out of the back, basically dump the powder in here, pull a ramrod out while somebody's shooting at me, put it in here, ram it, pull this back out, and keep it because I have to use it again. Put it back in, and if I was given the okay to fire, at will, I could just fire. 2 times a minute.
Maybe three.
Maybe 3, if you're good, if you're scared. All right. So you got that. So keep in mind you're riding a horse. There's no loop on that thing, so you're manhandling it on the horse. October 1862, the entire regiment had 41 sharps and 13 men. How many people in there? 157. So a third of them had good weapons. The other 2/3 are carrying smoothbore muskets. How many of you guys in here fired shotguns? Okay, shotguns are good for what? 100 yards, 200 yards? You're shooting balls, they go all over the place. That's about what this did. The next thing up are the carbines. This is a Maynard that I'm going to give Don. I still have to load and fire it. So I have to pull a bullet out of the back. I don't have to put it down, throw it in here and dump it, ram it and put the thing back. In this particular gun, I pull this lever on the bottom and it bent. Notice I'm pointing at the camera guy. I put the bullet in, I bring it back, click it, pull the hammer back and fire. 12 times enough. 2 times maybe 3, 12, 21.
You had to stand up.
No, you can lay down with that. But like the last gentleman's war, there's 40 guys standing double row, you're standing. You can hide behind a tree with this, right?
Is that a brass cartridge or,
Excuse me?
is that a brass cartridge?
Yes. Yep.
When you say bullet, it wasn't
a cartridge.
It was a cartridge. It's a mini ball.
That was a mini ball, a little container about 1.5 inches long in paper or skin, animal skin, powder in the bottom. You dump it in, take the bullet out of the top. Don does this quite well frequently. Puts that at the top, rams it. This was a brass cartridge. Okay, you put it in there, there's a small hole, and then you used to put the cap on, it would fire, but that little percussion cap would shoot a spark in both situations into the guns and fire. So that is a Maynard issued to the 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry.
How accurate is that? Better than the other one?
Oh yeah, easily. These are both rifle. That's a smoothbore. So the bullet over here is going this way. These are at least going this way. How accurate? I guess you asked the guy that got hit. I don't have a clue. Let me put that down. This is a Burnside. It was also issued to the 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry. You come up and take a look at these afterwards. I ask you maybe not to pick them up. Same kind of gun. These on both of them. See this little loop? I can put this loop right here. I don't have to carry it. I have to carry it. This guy, a little bit different. My wife's over here too. This one I pull down on the bottom, and it opens up in the middle. And I put a bullet in here, bring it back, load it, fire. Same thing, about 12 rounds in there. What's one little inherent problem with these 3 guns as a group? Cartridge for the ball, one style, powder and ball, 2 different cartridges for 2 different guns. So how many different guns are there? You have to get the right kind of cartridge, the right kind of gun to the guys in your group. There could be 3, 4 more other guns out there. So, much preferred by the cavalry. Carried more by the infantry. Okay? All right, thanks. So think about the cavalry. What do you think they did? What were those things that the cavalry would do better, perhaps, than the infantry? What could they do?
Scout.
They could scout.
charge of the battle.
They could charge. If Bill's my commanding officer and says, all right, go find out who's out on Eisenhower Boulevard. I want the first two tables to start marching. I want this table to get on horses and take off. Speed is good. Charging. So a number of things. Reconnaissance and screening, protecting the flanks. A lot of times when the infantry's charging, you'll see the cavalry out on the sides. So nobody gets on left or right side or comes in from behind. Raiding the enemy's camps, raiding towns for meat, shoes, whatever. Delaying and harassing when the Union Army is retreating, or when the Confederates are retreating. The cavalry is typically in the back, slowing down whoever's chasing. So that's the delaying action. Offensive actions, charging, like Bill said. Support roles is protecting the wagon trains and the supplies. How'd they do this? Mounted charges with sabers and pistols. This saber is good for how far away? 3 feet or 5? Some of you probably have personal, I'm not going, personal handguns. You go to a range and you first start learning to use those, or anytime, you're about 10 feet away from your target. Then you back up to 15 feet. Then you back up to 25 feet until you get used to the gun. So the other thing that the cavalry would use is a 6-shot pistol. Okay? So they have saber, they have some kind of rifle, and they have a 6-shot pistol. Pistol and saber used for close. The carbines were used for longer distance. So they would dismount, typically 6 guys in a group. One guy would take the reins of the 6 horses. The other 5 would go up, hide behind the tree, get behind an embankment, shoot with that 12 times a minute, and they're pretty good. I don't know if this is going to be considered gory or not, but people got shot, killed, and wounded in the war. They had these things. The smart people amongst them would take these apart. I'm going to try it. If I'm not successful, I can at least explain it. Trust me. This comes out. Don, right? This cylinder, this barrel comes out. So if I found another gun, the same kind, I could stack 6 more bullets, 12 more bullets, 18 more bullets in these things and stick them in my pocket. So I shoot 6, I take that out, I might throw it away. I take another 6, I put it right back in there and I'm good to go. So I could have 24 shots, right? 12 shots a minute with the longer gun, and maybe 2 6-cylinder shirts. Well, I could have 24 shots accessible and available to me, and the infantry guys have 2, 4, 6 a minute. So these handguns and the carbines are trusted weapons. So now it's time to move out. I'm trained, I have horses, I have guns, I got sabers. I'm in Harrisburg. I'm tired of looking at the Susquehanna River, so it's time to go. 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry, one of the few Union regiments organized in the east and sent to the west. The west is typically the Mississippi River. Some parts of Memphis, some parts of western Tennessee and Kentucky. 4,400 enlistees. I said Company C had 150, there's 25 companies, so that's where that number comes from. Traveled about 9,000 miles, all 4 years, from start to finish, about 9,000 miles. Just some travel highlights. Left Harrisburg by train, November of 1861, and head west. They arrive in Jeffersonville, Indiana, south of Indianapolis, January 10th. So it takes them, what, December. Almost 2 months to get from here by train to their staging. The rest of the war, you can see they're headquartered. They stay mainly in Kentucky, Ohio. Part of the Cumberland is up and down the Allegheny Mountains. And some of them go to Texas for some mustering out of some of the enemy troops at that point in time in July of 1865. Get on a train, keep this in the back of your mind. The Confederacy is to the south. That line is kind of a little quarter circle up in the north. Okay, I'm not saying that's there to protect the north, but the railroads are there, the rivers are there, that's how they get back and forth. So already there's a cap on where the Confederate soldiers might be able to get. Remained mainly in southern Indiana for the first several months of the war in 1862. And over the course of the next 3 years, they fought skirmishes, probably 100 to 200 skirmishes. Skirmishes are this table gets on horses, runs out to the star barn, meets this table, and they shoot each other for 45 minutes, and then they leave. A little skirmish. Could be a surveillance thing, could be feeling out where the army is. Skirmishes, not the big battles. The big battles are the ones I have listed here. And I'm going to go over 4 of those. Perryville, Kentucky is at the top. Last major battle in Kentucky for the Confederates. Thompson Station, both for the South in Tennessee. Chickamauga, Georgia is Chattanooga, Tennessee. And there's a bunch of other ones in there that I'm not going to go over. Averysboro and Bentonville, North Carolina, are the ones I'm going to wrap up with. Keep in mind this information as we go through it. 3 days in Gettysburg, considered the high water mark of the turning point of the war. Everybody's favorite general, North and South, Robert E. Lee. Okay? Everybody wanted Robert E. Lee. He went back to Virginia. He's fighting George Gordon Meade, who just got put in charge of the Union Army a month before because the leadership of the Union Army was not going to Lincoln 1. They put this guy in charge. Lee says he's going to be cautious. That's good for us. Union victory over 3 days. 85,000 people. Remember those 75,000 that Lincoln wanted for 90 days? The Confederates paid attention. There's the 75. I'm just joking. So you have 160,000, give or take some, total forces in Gettysburg. The Unions come up from the south. Confederates come down from the north. Confederates are pushing through Harrisburg. Union is protecting Washington, D.C. 50,000 casualties, meaning killed, wounded, or missing. So a third of the army doesn't get out. So keep those numbers in the back of your head. 1862, the 9th Pennsylvania, and everybody that they were supporting starts going into Kentucky. As best you can see, that's the lighter color than the red. It's the blue. Bad map. If I had my pink clicker, if I run the creases with Perryville, just trust me. Perryville, Kentucky, 1 day. October 8, 1862. Largest and last major battle in Kentucky. If you look at the map, the red's the Confederates. Where are they coming from? They're coming from the east, and they're coming from the south. The blue is the Union. They're coming from Indiana. They're coming from the west as they go into Perryville. 55,000 Union under Bragg. Under Don Carlos Buell. Braxton Bragg has 16. So the numbers don't even match. It's almost 3-1. Vital logistics intersection for the Union Army. The Union Army was in Franklin, Tennessee. I have a book up here to take a look at that. So they're meandering down from Victory in Franklin, Tennessee, and they bump into the Confederates who are pushing north. They're going up to take Franklin. 5 hours of fighting, Bragg says, I'm out of here. I don't have the numbers. I'm going back. He starts going back east and south. With his retreat, there's no more Confederate ownership in the state of Kentucky. So Kentucky now is part of the Union, part of the United States. What did the 9th Pennsylvania do? They led the attack. You saw that list. They could lead the attacks. Served on the extreme right of the Union line. If you take a look down here, they're basically saying, all right, I'm down here. I'm going to keep people in Tennessee down where they're at. I'm going to protect the right side of the Union. They fought against the Confederate cavalry, and they did reconnaissance. They're riding everywhere they could with those horses as fast as they could to see what's going on. So now let's step forward in time a little bit, 1862 to 1864. Green, we're getting a little bit further south and west. Where's the bulk of the Confederate Army? To the east. So now the Union Army, with a little bit of Vicksburg, Mississippi spattered in there, is starting to surround the entire Confederate Army. That means the Union Army in those areas has control of the waterways, the highways, and the railroads. And they can move stuff, people, supplies, weapons, literally at their heart's content. Thompson Station is up here. March 5th, 1863. It's a victory for the Confederates. Confederate General Red Jackson against Colonel John Coburn. Colonel. Not a general. Colonel has smaller numbers. Confederates have bigger numbers. But if you take a look at the numbers of the Union, had 2,500 people, the Confederates had 1,000. So the defeat of the Union, it wasn't like the defeat of the Confederacy in Gettysburg. It was a victory, and the Confederates advertised that for paper purposes, morale purposes, back home purposes. The important point that they kind of missed, according to what I've read, this is when the United States Army, the Union Army, starts saying, hey, let's try some different things. Let's start going out this way with the cavalry. Let's start taking our children here. Let's start going against the railroads and the water depots. So the Union Army is now starting to think strategic instead of tactical and reactive. That was the major point, period. And just like we have 283 coming through here in the Turnpike, we're a pretty important transportation hub in Pennsylvania. We have 81, 283, the Turnpike, the railroad. Perryville, Kentucky had the highways and the railroads. So whoever controlled that kind of took Kentucky. That's why it was important. What did the cavalry do? They led the Union Army down from Franklin. They covered the retreat. So when the Confederates win and the Union goes back north, the cavalry hangs back, pushes back, so the Union Army doesn't get overrun, going the wrong way. Rear guard action, and they protected the Union right for 18 days prior to the battle. So they're out there making sure nobody gets around. Mobile, fast, they got the right kind of guns, kind of do what they want, and do what they're told. So let's go 1863 to 1864, Chattanooga, Tennessee to Georgia, Savannah. The line now goes from Tennessee almost to Jacksonville. Same rhetorical question, where's the Confederate Army? Within the circle. And what's on their right, if we're looking at that map? The Atlantic Ocean. So they're getting surrounded. Chickamauga, extremely large battle near Chattanooga. Over the course of 4 or 5 weeks, it wasn't a 1-day or a 3-day Gettysburg. Confederate Army wins. It is that character Bragg who was up in Kentucky. He gets back to this area, the Confederacy, this area of fighting. He's in charge of the Confederates, and he fights a guy named Rosecrans. Union has 60,000, Confederates have 65,000, but how many did they lose? 13,000 people, 20%. So they won on paper because the union left, but they lost on numbers. They lost on supplies and everything you need. Some guy named Longstreet, who ends up in Gettysburg with Robert E. Lee, was the major leader of the victory. If you recall, during the Battle of Gettysburg, right before Pickett's charge, Lee goes over to Longstreet and says, let's charge right down the middle. Longstreet said, I got nothing to do with that. Right, you're crazy. But because it was the last gentleman's war, Robert E. Lee says, charge the middle. That's what they did. Turned into a bad thing. Longstreet was opposed to it. Longstreet was probably one of the best generals that the Confederacy had. He's the guy who masterminded this Confederate victory. The other thing that's important, if you look down at the bottom, the Union Army now realizes how important these things are. 10, 12 shots a minute versus 2 shots a minute. So there's more carbines issued to the cavalry and the infantry in the United States Army, these guys, than the slower smooth-bore muzzles, or rifle muzzles. So the advantage is there. And here it was at, I said 12, 14 to 20, that's pretty fast. I want that guy on my side, and I'll just keep giving him bullets. What did the cavalry do? What did the 9th Pennsylvania do? They protected their right flank of the Union Army this way, so I'm going north, be out here. Covered the retreat. The Union's heading north. And the Confederates are right behind them. Cavalry repulsed any attacks by the Confederate Army or the Union Army, and they accompanied the Union Army in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area. Now we get to Georgia. We're still down below. We're in the Carolinas. I'm sorry, we're not in the Carolinas. We marched through Georgia. Series of skirmishes. Very few major battles like Gettysburg, Chickamauga, Perryville. Primarily skirmishes. Meet up on the highway, shoot each other, leave. Part of Sherman's march to the sea. Sherman's bent on getting to the sea, and he's going to destroy everything he can. So this is part of it. The cavalry goes along with that, protects him. Destroyed Georgia's capacity for making war, $100 million in damages. Largely agrarian, right? Cotton. The Union's making cannons, 40,000 bullets a day. They have the industrial strength. They're pushing. And Sherman's going to carry the message. Union cavalry marches 541 miles through Georgia, destroys 14,000 bales of cotton and cotton gins. You don't see foundries, you don't see a railroad tie making things, you don't see Bethlehem steel plants down in Georgia. 500 prisoners were taken, 1,500 killed or wounded. 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry seems low to me. Out of 3,500 people, or whatever it was, 4,000, could be 3,000 this time. 6 killed, 33 wounded, 42 taken prisoner. If my calculation's right, that's like 1%. Not a bad ticket. So South Carolina, North Carolina, 1864, we're starting to wrap things up, 1865. The cat clicker will clearly point out where the Confederate Army is right in here. They can't go to the east because they're going to get them water. They're not coming to the south because they're running away. The mountains are on the west, and everything out here along the Mississippi is basically done. During the march, Sherman and his armies unleashed their wrath in South Carolina. That's where the troublemakers started, so they're going to make them pay as much as they can. Capital of Columbia is burned, railroads destroyed, drones and slaves are freed. Confederate forces basically aren't doing anything. They're not slowing down the Union Army at all. It's coming north. January 18th. The Army's trying to meet up with Sherman at Sisters Ferry. show you that in a minute. You get the Barnwell by the 6th, Blackville by the 9th, Aiken by the 11th, North Carolina. They went through the entire state in about 4 or 5 weeks. That's it. So there's nothing there. A couple of skirmishes, maybe one battle, that's about it. Hard for you to see. Take a look at the bottom. There's the Sisters Ferry that I talked about up here. Railroad. You're going for the railroads. You follow the railroads west and back on, a little bit north. No battles in here. What's that? It's a river. So I have the railroad and I have the river. And I'm heading to North Carolina. 5 to 6 weeks. Over the mountains, not much in the way. I get to North Carolina, coming out of South Carolina right here. A little skirmish as soon as I cross the state line. Solomon Grove right here. Aversboro and Bentonville. That's the target. That's where the battles are. That's where the bulk of the Confederate Army is. Aversboro, North Carolina, kind of a staging thing. The Union Army is moving. The Confederates are over here trying to get together, but they need a bunch of guys to come out and slow down the Union Army. That's what Aversboro was. If you take a look at the picture, the red is the Confederates. They're surrounding the blue. Looks like the Union Army is in trouble. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13 Confederate companies. 40, 50, 60 Union companies. Pretty lopsided. 25,000 Union, 5,400 Confederates. Harvey and Slocum are the leaders. What's the cavalry doing? Skirmishing. Part of a larger advance of Slocum and Kilpatrick. Kilpatrick is the head of the entire United States Army's cavalry. And they provided infantry support. So this is right before Bentonville. You can literally throw a stone from Bentonville to Aversboro. If you have a good arm. Not that far. So Bentonville is the next one. If you've ever been down there, it's one of the best places to go see. There's not a lot of monuments, but you're going to get sand and all kind of junk in your shoes, so take boots. It is a sandy, loamy, flat area. Last major Confederate offensive of the Civil War, Joseph Johnston against Sherman. And Sherman's not taking any prisoners. He's going. Going to take anything out of the way that he can. 60,000 Union soldiers, 21,000 Confederates in the Confederates' home yard. Union victory, what a standstill. Nobody's going out of there and raising their hand and saying, oh, it's good, da-da-da-da-da. And March 19th to the 21st, 4 weeks later, in a place called Appomattox, Virginia, Grant accepts the surrender of Lee. So that circle kept getting tighter, the resources kept getting narrowed. We didn't talk about France and England supporting one country or the other. We didn't talk about the rivers. We didn't talk about boundaries. We didn't get into the Western theater or talk about the guns and everything that was made up in New York. But you could see what happened. It just started closing in. So the war, for those who were paying attention, ends in April. Cavalry didn't even get involved in Bentonville. Making pumpkin pies and hot dogs. They were assigned a position to protect the Union flank, infantry battle. So taking a look back, Company C, 9th Pennsylvania, came out of here. Traveled over 9,000 miles. Horses and people for what we supplied, which is what was needed. Very mobile. Went to the Western Theater, 4,400 enlistees, 9,000 miles. mustered in November, October 1861, and mustered out 1865. I said an hour. Pretty close, I think. I have these books up here if you want to see them. One book I don't have up here, Grace Ehart. Excellent little book on the early industries of Middletown. That's where the foundry information came from. That's where the fry stuff came from. Pick it up from the Middletown Historical Society. A couple references. Take a look at the ones up here. And I need all the help I can get. So I'm going to put about 55 slides on a PowerPoint up here of reenactments over the past 5 years, just so you can see them. Some of these that you go to, you can't tell. Don will tell you this. You can't tell if it's 2026 or if it's 1863. They're that real. Some, we're in a parking lot of the VFW because there's veterans there and you want to go show some things. So I'm going to put some pictures up here. Okay with Nance and you all. You're all very quiet. I don't know if you have any questions. I don't know if I can answer your questions.
I have a question. So I'm fascinated at the horse angle of this because, I mean, I'm a horse person, but I spent a lot of years on the state police mounted unit. So it's very interesting some of the things you said about the horses and some of the parallels are still in existence today.
Okay.
But I'm curious if you know how the horses were sourced, if you know anything about their training, where they came from, they just wanted good horses, they didn't really care what they were, or if there's any resource material.
I'm not aware of I'm not
Okay.
aware of a facility anywhere that trained horses for the Army.
Yeah.
You said earlier on, horses were sourced out here.
Yeah.
They could have been riding horses, they could have been plow horses, they could have been plow horses were needed to pull wagons. So I don't know if they had a
Yeah.
cavalry camp on 441, a wagon pulling camp on Fulling Mill Road. I think they took what they got. And keep in mind, as you're going through 9,000 miles, they're losing them.
Yeah.
You gotta pick them up. There's no store over here. There's no Dollar General for horses. It's not there. So I don't know. They were, except early on, I think they were all usable, so there's probably some kind of training that they had. Who did it? I don't know if the cavalry trained their own. I don't know if the artillery trained its own.
So you mentioned that a lot of them were sent back. So,
There were qualified veterinarians
Yeah.
who knew the condition of horses, what they're going to be used for. So they got sent back after they got examined by people that knew they're probably not going to be fit for service enough to be used. So that's what I said early on. I hit like less than 1% of everything you can look at. It would be wonderful if over the next 18 months we could have some research on the horses and come back in here and tell us about the horses in the Civil War. That'd be great, particularly since we supply one. And Nancy will make you a pie.
She's my neighbor, she can do it.
She's your neighbor. Ha. Okay.
Volunteer for your question.
I know. It's fascinating.
This is Perryville, Kentucky, by the way. And I'm not trying to stymie the questions. Nice serene area, that's what they see when they get out there. And it's exactly like this. There's the guy. That's the Union leadership for the current group of Civil War reenactors here on the East Coast. I'm a fan of Perryville, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania during Remembrance Day. Our own version of Ulysses S. Grant without the scar. Me trying to think what to do. Me with a Mexican hat on. The same guys. That's the artillery leadership. Take a look at the rainbow. This was last year at Cedar Creek, Virginia. Just had to be there. Cavalry in Gettysburg. Here's the book. Key book. Good book. That's a cannon. Tell me that that's not 1863. This is up on a little round top. That's me. That's the